Welcome. I'm happy to introduce you to this project, which is one of the most challenging and exciting projects I've had in my hands. It is challenging because it requires the implementation of new paradigms in a diversity of areas like human, technology, agriculture. During this time, we'll go through talking about how the orphanages are doing in Mexico today, what's the proposal, permaculture and sustainability, the challenges we face, describing the team that is working on this initiative, some indicators to compare to put in perspective this initiative with the traditional system and the implementation plan. The situation in Mexico in relation to the orphans or abandoned kids is outrageous. There's more than 1 million kids which we don't know their whereabouts. We have no idea where they are, how are they living, what's happening with them. Only 20,000 are lucky to have the care of an NGO or a government institution. The lack of access to the basic human rights like food, shelter, education. 18% of them have STDs, which is 20% higher than the national average. Their brain and bodies do not develop because the lack of proper nutrition, which leaves them in disadvantage for life. Most orphanages don't have enough resources to track the result of their actions after the kids leave the orphanage. Very often they use drugs to control conduct behavior, and most critical part is that if they stop receiving donations, they have to close the doors. We may think initially that building more orphanages could be the solution. However, the more orphanages we build, the more donations every year we will need. And since we don't have enough donations for orphanages we have running today, building more orphanages will not solve the problem. It's been more than 5 years that we've been going around, we're trying to come with a viable solution. And it's now that we can present you with this model where we can operate an orphanage without the need of a constant continuous donations, a self-sufficient orphanage. This model only requires a donation to purchase the land and to build infrastructure. Afterwards, it will operate in a self-sufficient manner, meaning it doesn't need more donations to operate. We think it's a great proposal, since the traditional orphanage is not a solution for such a big problem. It's not just the finance side which is a breakthrough, but also the education is way superior to traditional. We also work on a implementation of a new paradigm in agriculture, which is called permaculture. The nutrition is not just good, but it's also balanced in order to prevent obesity or malnutrition. It's a project to evaluate new social, educational, and ecological models. Detailed documentation will be available to replicate the project wherever is required. Location. After visiting over 50 sites on 5 different states of Mexico, we selected this pristine location which has abundance of water and a good weather to produce food all year round. It's located 45 minutes from the state capital of Chiapas, called Tuxtla Gutiérrez, which provide us with the social services we may need, like hospitals, government offices, etc., and at the same time saving on the price of land by not being in an urban area. The pilot project requires 1 hectare, and the full project will grow to 10 hectares. When you place kids that have gone through a rough time into an enclosed room between walls, it creates anxiety on them and aggressivity, and it's really difficult to work with them. Therefore, the model is proposing this open space area with a natural environment, water that helps healing the emotions, fruit trees where they can climb and eat the fruit, and farm animals where some of them could work as pets for the kids, helping them to find back their balance. You can see here we have dormitories, kitchen, dining, school, workshops like carpentry, plumbery, etc., and a creativity area, which is an open space where we can use for multiple purposes. The infrastructure we have, as we talked before, the kitchen, etc., the farm, gardens, and talking about the staff, we have internal staff and external staff, coordinators, educators, housekeeping, helping with the cleaning, with the washing the clothes, site attendants to look after the crops, and volunteers, international volunteers, which are a very important part of this project. External, we have the accountants, lawyers, counselors, etc. This new paradigm for Mexican agriculture, called permaculture, was initiated in Australia by Bill Morrison. It's a proven methodology for organic intensive crop production. One of the main features of this methodology consists on the strategic design. What I mean by this is studying each of the elements that you are going to put in place, make sure the output of one element is strategically positioned so it becomes the input of the next element. By this way, you eliminate the labor and equipment required to transport the outputs to where the inputs are required. For example, the beans take the nitrogen from the air and fix it onto the soil. If we plant it together with the corn, then the corn, which requires a lot of nitrogen, then one, in a way, is feeding the other. Another example is if we need to go weeding, instead of hiring a lot of labor or machinery to do it, or chemicals, we can use chickens. The chickens love to eat the little weeds that are on the ground, and at the same time they fertilize as they eat around the crops. Sustainability is something we already know that is essential to preserve the existence of the human being on Earth. This project has an impact on the three main pillars of sustainability. Social pillar is we are not only looking inwards to look after the orphans, but also to have an impact on the surrounding communities, to extend the benefits of the project to people living outside the orphanage. Finance pillar, the longer we operate this model, the more yields we will have. So it creates abundance. Environmental, permaculture is focused on balancing the ecosystem. So by implementing this project, we also are helping to preserve flora and fauna of the local area. This project functions as a case study and a prototype for a potential multi-site implementation. The challenges? First, I would like to mention Mexico's legislation is way outdated. That means it does not foresee an NGO that is self-sufficient. They think the only way an NGO can survive is by asking for donations to cover for the operational expenses. Therefore, they don't foresee sustainable NGOs. Another challenge is the orphan reintegration into society. Also, having so many kids in one single place, a challenge is to preserve the kids' integrity and safety. And the funding for the first phase of the project. For the first phase, including the cost of the land and infrastructure, we require only $100,000. And for the second phase, we require another $900,000. We have implemented very aggressive cost savings methodologies in order to reach these amazing figures, doing a lot with very little. Strengths: we have a highly committed team with vast experience in all areas of the project. We already have an NGO in operation. The education and nutrition is way superior. We work in cooperation with the top orphanages in Mexico to share learnings. Our model allows to receive siblings. Therefore, by not separating them, we prevent even deeper psychological and emotional wounds. About us, we are quite happy and pleased to count with this amazing team of collaborators. Alfredo Rico, having most of his life in the design, implementation, and evaluation of integral projects. He was at one point National Logistics Manager for Procter & Gamble New Zealand. He's certified in permaculture. He was leader of the design and implementation of sustainable technology in the organization Transition Towns New Zealand. He was awarded one of the top 18 entrepreneurs of the future. Total project management of social projects in the poorest areas of Mexico, creating new jobs to boost local economy, and he works as a judge for In the Soul for social projects in Mexico. Robina is our most appreciated consultant for permaculture and eco-village design. Sergio Lopez, which has a master in environmental engineering, Dr. Juan Pablo Lazo, World Aquaculture Society's president, Lorena Ugalde with deep knowledge on special education, Maestra Lolis Gallegos on active learning education, and Dr. Mark Wood, Sustainability Director at ITESM Guadalajara. Measures which are so important, especially for a project that addresses such big problem in a country. We have return on investment, which is tenfold when it compares to a traditional system. Initial investment, we only did 100,000 for the pilot project. Education, in which in a traditional system they hardly pass from one grade to another. In our model, they go to excellent notes in high school, 2 trades, and optional college for those who wish to continue. Nutrition, in a traditional system, very often the brain doesn't develop properly, leaving them in the disadvantage for life. In our system is organic balanced diet. Languages, it's sad, but they only have rudimentary Spanish skills like yes, no, I don't know. In our system is fluent bilingual English-Spanish, plus optional languages from international volunteers. Interpersonal skills, which in a traditional system are close to none. They often comment they don't have any friends and they only are trained to defend themselves. We will put special emphasis on leadership, teamwork, public speaking, innovation, performing arts, social skills. Why we do this is because once they go out, one of the main things they will need is the social skills to create a support group that helps them to build on their new life. The fundraising department, which demands a big amount of resources from all departments in traditional orphanages, is not required with us since we don't need any additional funding once we start the operation. And community benefits, while a traditional orphanage is focused inwards, in a good case scenario, they help 50 orphans over a period of 15 years. In our case, all the sustainable technology we develop, we can offer to rural or urban organizations that wish to move towards sustainability, in addition to helping the kids. Next steps, we already have the NGO working. We're moving into the first phase of funding and land purchase. Afterwards, we start with the food production, and while it produces, while it grows, we start building the infrastructure. Next step is receive the orphans, and after a couple years of operation, we will document all the learnings to be ready for the expansion. We'll be very happy to hear from you, whether it's for questions, for offering support, or if you wish to help us with your donation. It's important to notice that 100% of your donation goes towards the purchase of the land or the infrastructure. We don't take any money for operational or other expenses. In the name of the children, we thank you very much for your donation.